The hum of the fridge was the only sound in the tiny apartment. James Walker stared at its nearly empty shelves, the harsh light revealing a jar of pickles, half a loaf of stale bread, and a carton of milk on its last legs. His stomach churned, not from hunger but from the weight of failure. He glanced at the clock. It was 10:47 p.m., and his 7-year-old daughter Emma was asleep, blissfully unaware of how tight things had become. James had already skipped dinner to ensure she had enough. Payday was 2 weeks away, and the $37.16 in his bank account had to stretch. But how? He had maxed out his credit card last month when their landlord raised the rent. The knot in his chest tightened. He couldn't let Emma go hungry. Tomorrow was the school's pizza day, and he'd already promised her the $2 for it. That left him with even fewer options. The fridge light flickered as James closed the door, his mind racing. He thought about calling his brother for help, but quickly dismissed the idea. Pride wasn't something he could easily swallow, even when his situation demanded it. He grabbed a notepad and sat at the kitchen table, jotting down every single expense. Rent, utilities, groceries, it all felt insurmountable. A crumpled supermarket flyer caught his eye, half buried under a pile of unopened bills. The bold letters screamed, "Save big this week." James picked it up, scanning the coupons on the back. Could this be the answer? He didn't know the first thing about coupons, but desperation whispered in his ear. "It's worth a shot," he muttered under his breath. Tomorrow, he would start a new game, the grocery game. The supermarket was a battleground. James clutched the flyer in one hand and a pen in the other, scribbling notes on the back of his hand as he maneuvered his cart through crowded aisles. He had spent hours the previous night researching couponing strategies, reading forums, and watching YouTube videos. Stack the coupons, one expert had said. Buy what's on sale. No exceptions. Easier said than done. James stared at the shelves, overwhelmed by the sheer number of brands and deals. He had a list, but it felt like it was written in a foreign language. He grabbed a box of cereal, on sale for $2.99, and flipped through his stack of coupons. His heart raced as he found one for $1.50 off. A quick calculation, $1.49 for the box. Not bad, but then the doubts crept in. Was this worth it? The time spent clipping coupons, the stress of hunting for deals. Was he actually saving money? His cart had only a few items, and he already felt drained. Need help? James turned to see an older woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile. Her cart was packed with groceries, and a thick binder full of coupons sat in her hands. "You're new to this, aren't you?" she asked knowingly. James nodded sheepishly. "Yeah, just trying to save a little." She handed him the coupon. "Here, use this. And always double-check the store policy on stacking discounts. You'll get the hang of it." Her kindness startled him. "Thanks," he said, clutching the coupon like a lifeline. As he checked out, James felt a flicker of hope. His total came to $23.67, a win, considering he had saved over $15. The game was on. Back at home, James spread his haul across the kitchen counter. It wasn't much: cereal, pasta, canned beans, and a few snacks for Emma, but it was a start. The receipt lay in front of him, circled and annotated like a war report. He had saved 40%, but could he do better? Emma wandered into the kitchen, her hair messy from sleep. "What's for breakfast, Dad?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. James forced a smile. "Cereal, sweetheart. Your favorite." As she sat at the table, he poured the cereal, trying not to think about how much he had left. Watching Emma eat filled him with determination. He needed to master this grocery game, not just to survive, but to thrive. That night, James dove deeper into couponing. He joined online groups, downloaded apps, and even created a spreadsheet to track deals. He learned about cashback offers, store loyalty programs, and rebate apps. The terminology was overwhelming. BOGO, stacking, Catalinas, but James was determined. By midnight, he had a plan. Tomorrow, he would hit 3 different stores, each with specific deals. It wasn't just about saving money. It was about stretching every dollar to its limit. As he closed his laptop, James felt a strange mix of exhaustion and excitement. The stakes were high, but for the first time in weeks, he felt in control. The grocery game wasn't just about food. It was about reclaiming his life. The next morning, James was up before the sun. He had mapped out his route and clipped his coupons with military precision. 3 stores, 2 hours, and every deal had to count. With his reusable bags in hand, he kissed Emma on the forehead before dropping her off at school. "Be good, okay?" he said, trying to sound upbeat. Emma nodded, her big brown eyes full of trust. "You too, Dad." The first store was a madhouse. Shoppers elbowed past each other to grab discounted items, carts clattering against shelves. James moved with purpose, his list clutched tightly. He spotted the first deal. Buy one, get one free on spaghetti sauce. He grabbed 2 jars, scanning the shelves for the matching coupon he'd memorized. At the checkout, he watched the total climb, $1.54, $67, $81. His throat tightened, but he handed the cashier his stack of coupons. The machine beeped as each one was scanned. One by one, the total dropped. $71, $59, $42. Finally, the cashier smiled and said, "That'll be $31.14. James exhaled, relief washing over him. Store 1 conquered. By the time he reached the third store, his energy was fading, but he pushed through. Every item was a small victory. When he returned home, his kitchen counter overflowed with groceries. Fresh produce, pantry staples, even a few treats for Emma. He calculated his total savings for the day, $68.23. It wasn't just about the number. It was proof that his effort was paying off. As he packed everything away, James felt a sense of pride he hadn't experienced in a long time. This wasn't just a hustle. It was survival, and he was winning. That evening, Emma sat cross-legged on the living room floor, her crayons spread around her. She was drawing a picture of their family. Her, James, and their late dog Max, who had passed away the year before. James watched her from the couch, a pang of guilt hitting him. "Daddy, why don't we ever go out to eat like other families?" Emma asked, not looking up from her drawing. The question caught him off guard. "Well, sweetie, we're trying to save money, so we can do even bigger things. Well, maybe take a trip someday. Wouldn't you like that?" Emma's face lit up. "Really? Can we go to Disney World?" James hesitated but nodded. "Someday, yeah, I promise." It was a bold promise, but it fueled his determination. After Emma went to bed, he sat at the kitchen table, poring over his receipts and coupons. Every cent he saved wasn't just for groceries. It was a step closer to giving Emma the life she deserved. He started to notice patterns, which stores doubled coupons, which products went on sale during certain weeks, and how to combine discounts for maximum savings. The more he learned, the more confident he felt. James realized this wasn't just about groceries. It was about control, about proving to himself that he could provide for his daughter no matter what. He wasn't just playing the grocery game, he was mastering it. Word of James's newfound skills began to spread. At Emma's school drop-off, another parent, Lisa, approached him. She was holding a crumpled flyer and looking frazzled. "James, I heard you're getting really good at this couponing thing. Can you teach me? Groceries are killing us." James hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was ready to be anyone's expert. But Lisa looked desperate, and he remembered how lost he had felt just weeks ago. "Sure," he said, offering a tentative smile. "Let's meet after school. I'll show you what I've learned." That afternoon, Lisa and 2 other parents sat at James's kitchen table as he explained his process. He showed them how to stack coupons, use cashback apps, and plan meals around sales. By the end of the impromptu lesson, Lisa was grinning. "You're like the coupon whisperer." James chuckled. He didn't feel like an expert, but seeing their enthusiasm gave him a boost of confidence. As the parents left, Lisa turned to him. "Thank you, James. You're really helping people." James closed the door and leaned against it, a small smile on his face. For the first time in a long time, he felt like more than just a struggling single dad. He felt like someone who could make a difference. James couldn't believe how quickly word had spread. By the end of the week, 3 more parents from Emma's school had reached out, asking for tips on saving money. One even called him a grocery guru. It felt surreal. Just a month ago, he was staring at an empty fridge, wondering how he'd get through the week. Now, people were looking to him for advice. Saturday morning, James hosted his first official grocery strategy session at the local library. He had printed handouts, highlighted the best apps, and even prepared a slideshow on his laptop. 5 parents showed up, notebooks in hand, eager to learn. "Okay," James began, standing at the front of the room. "The first rule of couponing: never pay full price. If it's not on sale or you don't have a coupon, it doesn't go in the cart." The group nodded, scribbling furiously as James walked them through his techniques. He explained how to match coupons with weekly ads, how to use cashback apps like Ibotta, and how to avoid common pitfalls like buying things just because they're on sale. One mom, Karen, raised her hand. "But isn't this time-consuming? I mean, I work full-time, and I can't spend hours clipping coupons." James smiled. "I thought the same thing. But once you get the hang of it, it becomes second nature. Start small. Focus on just a few items each week. The savings add up fast." By the end of the session, the group was buzzing with excitement. Karen approached him afterward, her face glowing. "You've given me hope, James." "Thank you." As James packed up, he realized something. This wasn't just about saving money anymore. He was building a community, and it felt good to help others. One rainy afternoon, James was flipping through flyers at the dining table when his phone buzzed. The number wasn't saved, but he recognized the area code. Hesitant, he answered. "Hello." James Walker, a smooth voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Andrea Myers. I'm a reporter for the Chicago Tribune. I've been hearing about your couponing workshops. I'd love to interview you for a story." James froze, the pen in his hand hovering over the paper. "A story? About me?" "Yes," Andrea said, her tone warm but professional. "People are struggling to make ends meet, and your approach is inspiring. I think our readers could learn a lot from you." James didn't know what to say. The idea of being in the newspaper was intimidating, but he couldn't deny that it sounded exciting too. Sure. When do you want to talk? Tomorrow, if you're free. We can meet at the library where you hold your sessions. James agreed, his mind racing as he hung up. He spent the rest of the evening preparing, jotting down notes about his journey. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about showing others that small changes could make a big difference. The next day, Andrea arrived with a notepad and recorder. She listened intently as James shared his story, nodding at the right moments and asking thoughtful questions. James, she said as they wrapped up, you're not just saving money. You're giving people hope. That's powerful. As she left, James sat in the quiet library, her words echoing in his mind. Hope. Maybe that's what he had been missing all along. 2 weeks later, James's story was published in the Chicago Tribune. The headline read, "The Grocery Guru: How One Single Dad is Helping Families Save Big." James picked up a copy at the corner store, his hands trembling as he flipped to the article. There was his face, his story, his tips laid out for the world to see. He wasn't sure whether to feel proud or nervous. When Emma saw the article, her face lit up. "Daddy, you're famous," she squealed, waving the newspaper in the air. James chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Not famous, sweetie. Just trying to help people." The article brought a wave of attention. His email inbox flooded with messages from strangers asking for advice. Some were parents like him, struggling to stretch every dollar. Others were retirees, college students, and even small business owners looking to cut costs. One email stood out. It was from a local nonprofit that helped low-income families. They invited James to speak at an upcoming event. "We'd love for you to share your expertise," the email read. James stared at the screen, his mind spinning. Could he really stand in front of a crowd and talk about his journey? The thought was terrifying, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was an opportunity to make an even bigger impact. After a deep breath, he typed out a response. "I'd be honored." For James, the grocery game was no longer just about survival. It was about building something bigger, a movement, a message, a way forward. The night of the event arrived faster than James expected. He stood backstage at a local community center, clutching a stack of notes. His heart pounded as he peeked through the curtain. Rows of chairs were filled with families, seniors, and even young adults, all here to hear him speak. "You'll do great," a volunteer said, patting his shoulder. James nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He thought of Emma, sitting in the front row with a big smile, and that gave him the courage to step out. The applause was polite but warm as he approached the microphone. "Hi everyone," he began, his voice shaky. "My name's James Walker, and a year ago, I was struggling to figure out how to keep food on the table for my daughter and me. Today, I'm here to share what I've learned about stretching a dollar without sacrificing quality." As he spoke, his confidence grew. He told the crowd about his first chaotic shopping trips, his late nights clipping coupons, and the joy of realizing he could save $300 a month. He shared his favorite hacks: shopping midweek for markdowns, freezing extra produce, and never ignoring loyalty programs. The audience leaned in, taking notes and nodding in agreement. A single mom raised her hand. "How do you stay motivated when it feels overwhelming?" James smiled. "I think about my daughter. Every dollar I save means more security for her. And honestly, you don't have to be perfect. Start small. Even saving $20 a week can make a big difference." By the time he finished, the crowd erupted into applause. James stepped off stage, his chest swelling with pride. For the first time, he felt like more than just a dad doing his best. He was someone making a difference. The event turned out to be a catalyst. Over the next few weeks, James was invited to speak at local schools, churches, and even a few small businesses. He became a familiar face in the community, known not just for his tips, but for his authenticity. One afternoon, James received a handwritten letter in the mail. It was from an older woman named Margaret, who had attended one of his talks. "Dear James," it began, "I'm 72 years old, and I've been living on a fixed income since my husband passed. I used to dread grocery shopping because I never knew if I'd have enough. But after hearing you speak, I started using your strategies. Last month, I saved $82. Thank you for giving me hope." James read the letter twice, his eyes misting. Margaret's words reminded him why he started this journey in the first place. He pinned the letter to his fridge, a daily reminder of the lives he was touching. Meanwhile, Emma became his biggest cheerleader. She proudly told her classmates, "My dad is a grocery expert." One day, she even brought home a drawing of him standing behind a podium with the words, "My hero," scrawled in crayon at the top. James smiled every time he saw it, tacked to the fridge next to Margaret's letter. What started as a desperate attempt to save money had grown into something bigger than he ever imagined. James wasn't just saving on groceries anymore. He was helping others reclaim control over their lives, one card at a time. One crisp autumn morning, James's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of him. "Hello, Mr. Walker. This is Sarah Richards from MarketSmart, a retail analytics company. We've been following your story, and we're impressed with your innovative approach to saving. We'd like to discuss a partnership." James blinked, unsure if he'd heard her correctly. A partnership? Yes, Sarah continued. We're launching a new app to help consumers save money at the grocery store. We think your expertise would be invaluable. Would you be open to meeting with our team? James hesitated. This was uncharted territory, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for such a leap. But something about Sarah's tone suggested this could be a game changer. Sure, he said finally. When would you like to meet? As he hung up, James couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. This wasn't just about his journey anymore. It was about helping more people than he'd ever imagined, and taking a step toward a future he'd never dared to dream of. James arrived at the sleek downtown office of MarketSmart feeling out of place in his modest button-up shirt and khakis. The towering glass building gleamed in the sunlight, a stark contrast to the simple life he'd been leading. As he stepped into the lobby, he wondered if he was in over his head. Mr. Walker, a polished young woman asked, approaching him with a warm smile. I'm Sarah Richards. Thank you for coming. James shook her hand, his palms slightly damp. Thanks for inviting me. Sarah led him to a spacious conference room where 3 other team members were waiting. They introduced themselves as data analysts and developers. James listened as they explained their vision for a grocery savings app. Our goal is to revolutionize how people shop, Sarah said. We want to combine real-time sales data with personalized coupon recommendations, and we think your expertise could help us make the app user-friendly and practical. James leaned back in his chair, absorbing their pitch. So, what exactly would you need from me? We'd like you to serve as a consultant, Sarah explained. You'd test the app, provide feedback, and even create some tutorial content for our users. In return, we're prepared to offer a generous compensation package. James hesitated, his mind racing. The opportunity was exciting, but it was also daunting. Could he balance this with his workshops and his time with Emma? I'll need some time to think about it, he said finally. Of course, Sarah replied, sliding a folder across the table. Take this home and review the details. We believe in this partnership, and we hope you will too. As James left the building, the weight of the decision settled on his shoulders. This could be a life-changing opportunity, but was he ready for the responsibility? That evening, James sat at his kitchen table with a MarketSmart folder in front of him. Emma was drawing at the other end of the table, humming a tune from her favorite cartoon. Daddy, what's that? She asked, pointing to the folder. It's an opportunity, James said, struggling to find the right words. A company wants me to help them with an app for saving money on groceries. Emma tilted her head. That sounds cool. Are you going to do it? James smiled at her enthusiasm. I don't know yet, sweetheart. It's a big decision. He opened the folder and reviewed the details. The compensation was generous, enough to make a significant difference in their lives. But it also required a time commitment, time he wasn't sure he could spare. He made a list of pros and cons, scribbling furiously. On one hand, the partnership could provide financial stability and allow him to reach a wider audience. On the other hand, it might take him away from Emma and the community work he'd grown to love. By the time he finished, his head was spinning. He looked at Emma, who was now coloring a picture of a smiling son. Emma, he said softly, what do you think I should do? She looked up, her eyes bright. I think you should do what makes you happy, Daddy. But don't forget about me. Her words hit him like a ton of bricks. James realized that whatever he decided, it had to be something that kept their little family at the center of it all. The next morning, James called Sarah. His heart pounded as he waited for her to pick up. James, it's great to hear from you, she said cheerfully. I've thought it over, he began, his voice steady. I'm in. I'll work with MarketSmart, but on one condition. Of course, Sarah said. What is it? I need flexibility. My daughter comes first, and I want to keep running my workshops. If we can make that work, I'm all in. Sarah didn't hesitate. We can absolutely accommodate that. Family comes first, always. Relief washed over James as they finalized the details. The partnership was official, and for the first time in years, he felt like his hard work was truly paying off. Later that evening, James sat Emma down and told her the news. Her face lit up. Does this mean we can get those chocolate chip cookies I like? She asked with a mischievous grin. James laughed, pulling her into a hug. Maybe once in a while, but only if they're on sale. As they sat together on the couch, James realized something important. His journey wasn't just about saving money. It was about creating a better life for Emma and showing her that with determination, anything was possible. James's first day as a consultant for MarketSmart felt surreal. He logged into their online platform from his modest home office, which was little more than a corner of his living room. A team of developers and designers awaited him on a video call. Welcome aboard, James. Sarah greeted him warmly. Today we'll brainstorm features for the app, and we'd love your input on making it practical for real people. James nodded, adjusting his headset. Sure thing. The key is simplicity. Most people don't have hours to clip coupons or plan meals. The app needs to do the heavy lifting for them. As he shared his insights, the developers furiously took notes. James suggested features like push notifications for flash sales, a meal planner that auto-generates shopping lists, and a rewards tracker to motivate users. What about families? One developer asked. How can we make this work for someone with kids? James grinned. Oh, I've got experience there. Include kid-friendly meal options and a way to track savings visually, like a piggy bank graphic filling up. Kids love seeing progress, and it gets the parents motivated too. The meeting ended with applause and promises to implement his ideas. James leaned back in his chair, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Later that evening, Emma wandered into the living room, holding her favorite stuffed bunny. "How was your meeting, Daddy?" "It was good, sweetheart," James said, lifting her onto his lap. "We're going to help a lot of people save money." Emma beamed. "That's awesome. Can I help too?" James chuckled. "You already are. You're the reason I started this journey." A few weeks later, MarketSmart released the beta version of their app. James felt a mix of excitement and nerves as he downloaded it onto his phone. Sarah called to walk him through the features. "We've incorporated all your suggestions, James. Now we need you to test it in the real world." James decided to make his first test run at his usual grocery store. Armed with the app and his trusty coupons, he pushed his cart through the aisles, curious to see how it all worked together. The app immediately flagged a buy one get one deal on pasta. Then, it suggested a recipe for a simple marinara sauce, complete with a shopping list of ingredients, all on sale. "This is genius," James muttered, adding the items to his cart. At checkout, he compared the total with and without the app. To his amazement, he saved an additional $12 beyond his usual coupons. When he got home, Emma greeted him at the door. "How did it go?" James knelt down, holding up the receipt like a trophy. "It went great. We saved even more than usual." Emma clapped her hands. "Yay, Daddy. You're like a money superhero." James laughed, but her words stuck with him. This wasn't just about groceries anymore. He was becoming a force for change, starting with his own family. As MarketSmart prepared to officially launch the app, they invited James to be the face of their marketing campaign. "Me? On camera?" he asked, stunned, when Sarah pitched the idea. "Absolutely," she said. "Your story is inspiring, and people will connect with you. You're relatable, someone who's lived the struggle." James hesitated, but eventually agreed. The next week, a film crew arrived at his home to shoot the promo. They captured him cooking dinner with Emma, walking through his local grocery store, and sharing his tips for saving money. When the final ad aired, James was amazed. It wasn't just about the app. It was about his journey as a father doing his best to provide. The tagline read, "Save smarter. Live better. Start today." The campaign was an instant hit. Downloads of the app skyrocketed, and James became something of a local celebrity. Strangers stopped him at the store to thank him, and he even received invitations to speak at national conferences. Despite the newfound attention, James stayed grounded. He kept his focus on Emma and their simple routines. One night, as they sat together reading bedtime stories, Emma looked up at him. "Daddy, are you famous now?" James smiled. "I guess so, but you know what? The most important thing is that I'm still your dad." Emma hugged him tightly, and in that moment, James knew he was right where he was meant to be. The soft hum of the dishwasher filled the kitchen as James sat at the table, flipping through a photo album. Emma was already asleep, her stuffed bunny tucked tightly under her arm. Tonight, memories of the past weighed heavily on his mind. James had never planned on being a single father. 5 years ago, his life had looked completely different. He and his wife, Lauren, had been a team. They met at a college seminar in Chicago, both drawn to the idea of building a simple, stable life. Lauren had a warm smile that could light up any room, and she believed in James even when he doubted himself. They married young, eager to start their family. When Emma was born, it was like their lives had finally come into focus. She was a quiet baby with big, curious eyes, and from the start, she was the center of their world. But life had its own plans. Lauren's sudden illness struck like a bolt from the blue, leaving James to navigate parenthood alone. The months after her passing were a blur of grief and survival. Emma was only 3 at the time, too young to fully understand but old enough to feel her mother's absence. James wiped a tear as he closed the album. Those days had been the hardest of his life, but they had also shaped him into the man he was now. "I miss you, Lauren," he whispered, staring at her smiling face in the wedding photo. "But I'm doing my best." For Emma, the next morning began like any other. James woke early to the sound of Emma giggling in her room, likely playing with her bunny. He smiled, the warmth of her laughter a daily reminder of why he pushed himself so hard. "Morning, Daddy," Emma chirped as he stepped into the kitchen. She was already at the table, eating a bowl of cereal. "Morning, sunshine. Ready for school?" he asked, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Yep, we're doing a science project today," she said, her eyes sparkling. "We're building volcanoes." James chuckled. "Sounds messy. Just make sure you don't bring the volcano home with you." Their mornings were always a whirlwind, packing lunches, brushing teeth, and hunting for misplaced shoes. Despite the chaos, James cherished these moments. They were a team, navigating life together. After dropping Emma off at school, James headed to his part-time job at a local community center. He taught a budgeting workshop to adults, many of whom were struggling to make ends meet just like he had been. By the time he picked Emma up in the afternoon, she was bursting with stories about her day. "Daddy, did you know you can make lava with baking soda and vinegar?" she asked excitedly as they walked home. "I did, actually. Maybe we'll try it this weekend," James said. Later that evening, as they sat on the couch watching a nature documentary, James felt a deep sense of contentment. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that made it beautiful. Emma's resilience amazed James every day. Despite losing her mother so young, she had an unshakable spirit. It was one of the many ways she reminded him of Lauren. One evening, Emma pulled out a scrapbook she had been working on. "Look, Daddy," she said, flipping through the pages. The scrapbook was filled with pictures of the two of them, at the park, making silly faces at the kitchen table, and even a photo from their first couponing adventure. Each page was decorated with colorful stickers and handwritten captions in Emma's scrawling handwriting. "This is amazing, sweetheart," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've been working hard on this. I wanted to make something to remind us of all the fun stuff we do," Emma said. "And so Mommy can see it from heaven?" James felt a lump in his throat. "She'd love it, Emma. She'd be so proud of you." That night, as Emma slept, James thought about how far they'd come. Life had thrown them challenges that could have broken them, but together, they had built something strong and unshakable. Their life wasn't defined by what they had lost. It was defined by how they had chosen to move forward. And for James, that was the greatest victory of all. James sat at his kitchen table one evening, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the quiet apartment. His laptop screen glowed as he typed up ideas for MarketSmart's next app update. The app had been a success, but James wasn't satisfied. He wanted to go deeper, to make it even more accessible for families like his. He thought back to the budgeting workshops he taught at the community center. Many of his students struggled not because they didn't want to save money, but because they didn't know how to begin. The app needed to help people take the first step. "What if we had a feature that creates a savings challenge?" he muttered to himself. "Something like save $50 this month with easy, actionable steps." Emma peeked her head around the corner. "Daddy, who are you talking to?" James chuckled. "Just brainstorming, kiddo. What do you think about an app that gives people little challenges to save money?" Emma tilted her head. "Like a game? People like games, Daddy?" James grinned. "Exactly. A game. You're a genius, you know that." The next day, James pitched the idea to Sarah and the development team. They loved it. Within weeks, they were designing a savings challenge feature, complete with progress trackers and rewards for reaching milestones. As the project moved forward, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just helping his own family anymore. He was helping countless others take control of their finances. "Daddy, are we going to change the world?" Emma asked one night as they worked on her homework together. James smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "One family at a time, sweetheart. One family at a time." The Savings Challenge feature launched with much fanfare, and the response was overwhelming. Social media was flooded with stories of users saving money for the first time, sharing their triumphs with hashtags like #SmartSavings and #GroceryWins. James scrolled through the posts, feeling a swell of pride. One story in particular caught his attention. A single mother in Detroit who had saved enough to buy her son a new pair of shoes for his birthday. "Emma, come here," James called, waving her over. She climbed on his lap and looked at the screen. "What's that?" "It's someone who used the app to save money just like we do," James said. Emma's eyes widened. "You mean we helped them?" "We sure did," James said, hugging her. As the weeks went on, MarketSmart began receiving attention from national media outlets. James was invited to share his story on a popular morning show, and he hesitated at first. He wasn't sure he wanted the spotlight. "Daddy, you should do it," Emma said, her tone serious. "You always tell me to be brave." James couldn't argue with that. The interview aired the following week, and James spoke candidly about his journey, from struggling to make ends meet to helping others do the same. The ripple effect was undeniable. More people downloaded the app, more stories were shared, and more lives were changed. And through it all, James stayed humble, focused on the one person who mattered most, Emma. One chilly Saturday morning, James and Emma attended a community event organized by MarketSmart. It was a workshop to teach families how to maximize their savings using the app. James was one of the speakers, and he brought Emma along to help. The room buzzed with energy as families filled the seats, eager to learn. James stood at the front, holding a microphone, while Emma handed out worksheets with a smile. "Good morning, everyone," James began. "I'm here today not as an expert, but as someone who's been in your shoes. I know what it's like to worry about making ends meet, but I also know it's possible to turn things around." He shared his story, offering tips and tricks that had worked for him. The audience was engaged, nodding and taking notes. During the Q&A session, a woman raised her hand. "How do you stay motivated when it feels like you're not saving enough?" she asked. James thought for a moment. "Celebrate the small wins," he said. Even saving $10 is a step in the right direction. And remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. As the event wrapped up, a young boy approached Emma. "You're lucky your dad's so smart," he said. Emma grinned. "I know, but he says I'm the smart one." James overheard and laughed, ruffling her hair. In that moment, surrounded by people striving for a better future, he realized just how far they had come. Together, they were building something bigger than themselves, a community united by hope and resilience. James stood on the balcony of their small Chicago apartment, gazing out at the city lights twinkling like stars. The cool evening breeze carried the distant sounds of traffic and laughter, a hum of life that never truly stopped. Behind him, Emma was at the kitchen table, coloring pictures of what she called their superhero team. In her world, James was a superhero, a father who had fought every battle for their family and come out stronger. But tonight, James felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years: hope. The Savings Challenge feature had transformed MarketSmart's reach. The app was now in the hands of millions of users across the country, and the stories continued to pour in. Families saving for their first vacation, parents managing to pay off debts, and individuals finally feeling like they had control over their finances. "Daddy, come look," Emma called, holding up her drawing. James walked over and knelt beside her. The picture was of the two of them, standing in front of a giant piggy bank. Above them, she had written, "Team Super Savers." "This is amazing, Em," James said, grinning. "You're really good at this." Emma beamed. "Do you think Mommy would like it?" James's heart squeezed, but he smiled. "She'd love it. She'd be so proud of you. And of us." Later that night, after Emma was tucked into bed, James sat at his desk and opened his notebook. He flipped through pages of notes, plans, and ideas, things he wanted to accomplish, both for their family and for the people he was helping. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a daunting question mark. It felt like a blank canvas, ready to be painted with the colors of possibility and promise. And James knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning of their journey.